Hello, this video presentation is on a technique for solving quadratic equations called completing the square. There will be at least 2 videos, maybe 3, about this technique. First of all, we need to recall from yesterday, the last video, when we have an equation like this, we could solve it by taking the square root of both sides. Remember, we need a plus minus here. We have x plus 2. I don't need the parentheses there. X plus 2 equals plus or minus 3, negative 2, subtracting 2 to both sides, plus or minus 3. And we have negative 2 plus 3, 1, negative 2 minus 3, negative 5. Now the question is, how do we take this equation when it's in standard form and put it in this form? So standard form, I don't think we've really talked about that, but I'll tell you in a minute. You have x plus 2 equals 3, x squared plus 2x, 4x plus 4 equals 3, and x squared plus 4x equals 1. This is, plus 1 equals 0. This is standard form. Now, how do we take this equation and write it like this? How do we go backwards? Because I'm going to give you the equation in this form. Well, notice that right here, we have a perfect square trinomial. We talked about them when we talked about factoring. X squared is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square. And 2 times x is 2x times 2, or doubled, is 4x. All right? This is a perfect square trinomial. So how do we make this into this? That's the question. So let's do an example. We'll just kind of walk through one. So here's our equation. Step 1. Well, let's write this out here. Steps. Step 1 is to put the constant on the other side. So we're going to subtract 4 to both sides. X squared plus 6x equals negative 4. We're going to leave a space here. Right here, we're going to leave a space. And I'm going to put a little line here and here. I'm going to add something to both sides. In order for this to be a perfect square trinomial, this term right here has to be a perfect square. And when I take the square root times x and double it, I have to get 6. So what we do is we take half of this take half of the linear coefficient and square it. If you look over here, half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. That's all we're doing. I'm losing my problem too. So, 6 divided by 2 squared, 3 squared equals 9. I add 9 to both sides. Add that number to both sides. This is really finicky today. Now I factor. X plus 3, quantity squared equals 5. Factor and solve. And now it's just like what we did yesterday. Square root both sides. X plus 3 equals plus or minus 5. Subtract 3. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. Forgot that square root there. So our answer, negative 3 plus the square root of 5, negative 3 minus the square root of 5. You can write the answer like this or like this. All right, let's do a couple of quick examples, and then we'll be done. All right, step 1 is to put the constant on the other side, minus 4. We have x squared plus 8x equals negative 4. And we always add something to both sides. Lousy looking 4. Take half of the linear term. Half of this is 4. Square it. Actually, I wrote it. Half of 8. 4 squared is 16. I add it to both sides. I factor this side. And then I take the square root of both sides. X plus 4. Well, when I square root it, plus minus, yep. When I take the square root of both sides, I get square root of 12. 12 is 4 times 3. I get 2 square root of 3 with a plus or minus. The plus or minus must go here. If it goes here, it's wrong. And then I subtract 4. X equals negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 3. Negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 3. And you're done. That's it. Easy peasy. Let's do one more just to make sure. All right. Step 1, add the constant, put the constant on the other side. X squared plus 2x plus something equals 1 plus something. Take half of the linear term and square it. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Factor. Take the square root of both sides. Must have the plus minus. X plus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 2. Subtract 1. X equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. Negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. And we're done. That's it. It's actually quite simple until we start doing it with fractions. Then it gets a little dicey. All right, take care, have a great one, and I'll talk to you guys later.